Hello and welcome to Concept, Content to Copy. This is Taj McCameron. Who is Taj McCameron? Well, Taj McCameron is a young woman that has been through multiple situations and scenarios in her life, and the one thing that kept her going through all of it was the fact that I'm a writer. My journey in writing started as a young child. I remember being that kid that used to write stories, and I would come up with them in my mind. I would pick a point and start to think of the concept. I would sometimes start with the writing process, and I would write handwritten stories. Sometimes I would start with the visualization process. I kind of remember when I was a kid, I would have groups of friends. Actually used to get on my nerves, and this would kind of broke me in the friend grouping up, is we would think of stories together, of concepts, and we just have like, okay, this is a story we're going to write. But to me, I always process the story so much faster than everybody else that I used to kind of almost get on other people's nerves because I could come up with the entire storyline before anybody else could finish the first chapter. And it was kind of difficult for me to work with groups of people when it came to creative writing because of the fact that I processed a story concept so fast. I remember being that kid that when I wrote a story, I remember I used to be into horror stuff when I was a kid. I got delivered from that when I became Christian. But with it, I came to a understanding that I had written. Wrote a piece. It was this little scary story piece, and I was in the 5th grade, and I went to the copying place with my dad and had all of the stories printed out. And I remember, I don't know what it was, but I know that the professor didn't particularly, she was not fond of me. And because I didn't hand her one of the copies of the story first, she didn't let me pass it out to everybody else to read. Even though everybody was going to get a copy of the story, I just was short copies and I didn't give her one. I didn't think about it. And at the time I was 10 years old. Pardon my 10-year-old brain. And it hurt me because I wanted people to read my work, but somebody like an adult kind of blocked me from doing that. But I kind of stopped writing for a period of time outside of school work. I really didn't work on writing like that. Then as I got older, I found that as I wrote stories that I didn't touch creative writing again until I started doing fiction. I used to have 2 things that I would write fiction about. I had a TV show and I had a conceptive writing concept thing. It was another form of fan fiction. Will not reveal what that was about. But I will tell you this. That's what started me writing again. I was a fan of a television show and I said to myself one day, why don't I start writing fiction about it? With having started writing fiction about what it was, I figured out blog concept writing for fiction because I first did the research on how to write those types of stories. And most people, when they did stories, they went to a blogging site and posted blogs of chapter after chapter of the story they were writing in blog form. We'll get into that later. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just telling you how I got started writing again. With that, when I started writing fiction for that specific TV show, I found that I not only was writing, I was writing consistently. And by the time I stopped writing fiction for that story concept, I had written over 100 pieces. And these were not baby one-page story blurbs. These were 25, 35, 100-page, 200-page stories that I was writing, that I would just get an idea of what I wanted to write about and I would just flow. And when I started flowing, I would not stop until the concept was complete. Now, this was during a time when I had no followers. No one knew what I was doing. Then I started actually deciding to post some of the stuff that I was writing on the blogs that was for the fiction sites that I enjoyed reading the fiction off of. And I came to find out, to this day, people still go to the fiction sites and read my stories. And I don't know when the last time was I got a notification from one of the sites saying, "Oh my God, I loved your story," when I started posting them publicly for people to be able to read. And that was my first delving in. And later, I came to another thing that I was a fanatic about at the time, and I started writing stories about that. Because what I did when I went to those sites, I found out that people kind of babied those stories. And I went in and I wrote full-fledged, full concept, full written stories. Same way I did for the other fan fiction. And I wrote maybe 50 pieces for that. Give or take, those stories can still be found, but I'm not telling nobody what the name I used for those fiction stories were. But I'm going to tell you this. The people loved those stories so much that people would literally get into debates in the comments about who their favorite character was. And because the character was based off of a real human being, this particular thing actually ended up that it created a story concept that people were literally fussing and arguing about. They were literally fussing and arguing about the actual people in the story. They were for this person, they were for that person, I'm with this person, I'm with that person. And it actually created such a heavy debate within the comment section. I would have to sometimes go in there and break up fights. Recently, I went back just to look at one of the last pieces that I'd written. And last I checked, it was between 10,000 view count and 20,000 view count. I cannot remember the exact number, and I don't feel like looking for it right now. Not letting you see that. But that's where my writing concept came from. I've been a writer since I was young. I've been a storyteller since I was young. And after I gave my life to Christ, I stopped writing fiction like that. I stopped writing fan fiction. I stopped writing fiction like that. Doesn't mean I don't every once in a while go back and look at some of the stuff that I've written prior just to conceptually get a idea. But I found that I've come to a place that in my walk with God, I could no longer write those things. Now, what ended up happening after that is I started writing nonfiction. And from there, I've written 8 nonfiction pieces. My main book, and a couple of pieces that are external pieces that I created. And right now, I'm just in this state of I want to show people how I did it. I didn't want to create a course to help people to just learn how to write a book. I didn't want to just do, oh, this is where you go to Kindle KDP and this, that, and the other in order to publish a book. I wanted to tell you how to tell a story because I'm a storyteller, and how to not only tell a story, but to turn that not only into a book, but to turn it into a writing concept, into a marketing concept, into a podcasting concept, blogging concept, and take it all the way through the processes in order to turn it into a business for you. Because you can create something that could become financially lucrative for you and your family for generations to come. And I've been scared to do this course because I didn't want to create a writing course, because I didn't see the point in it, because I haven't written anything in a long time. I don't write nonfiction anymore. I tried to start again. I just haven't been inspired, and I really haven't had the time because I've been working on business related stuff. But I have the knowledge, and I don't want to waste the knowledge that I do have by not allowing myself to help someone else create the writing projects that they so well desire to have, build, and develop. And I was able to take these same skills, transfer them to blogging, to songwriting, to screenwriting. And I'm going to take what I know, and I'm going to help you go from whatever your concept is, whether it's a book, a song, a screenplay, a blog, a nonfiction book, and turn it into content that can be lucrative for you. This is Taj McCameron. See you in the next one.